Yeah, that says it all. We interrupt programming right now to let you know that the Broncos have, in fact, 5 weeks determined who their next head coach is going to be. Tom Green along with Scotty Gange, and many people expected it to be Sean Payton, but many people didn't expect it to take this long.
Yeah, I don't think they took it to expect this long, and also to expect this suddenly, right, just to happen just like that. But here we are sitting here breaking in. It's time to play with Payton a little bit.
Yeah, and the key was, of course, the compensation. They had to work out the contract with the New Orleans Saints. We still are working on those details. We're going to talk to Mike Kliss in just a minute, but if you're unfamiliar with Sean Payton, you're looking at him. He's 59 years old. He's been out of coaching for over a year now, but he does have a Super Bowl under his belt, one that he won in 2009 with the New Orleans Saints. 15 years with the Saints, that one championship. He won 152 and lost 89, and he is now going to be the man that the Broncos are going to put in charge of trying to right the ship. This after 6 straight seasons of missing the playoffs. He also missed the 2012 season, as you can see, his part in the NFL's what they called Bounty Gate. But you can also see all those other accolades that Sean Payton has put together over his career. So we want to get to Mike Kliss because there are several things that we'd love to learn more about. Certainly why it took so long, Mike, what they're going to have to give up to the Saints, and what finally convinced Sean Payton to become the Denver Broncos' next head coach.
Yeah, I think Payton was interested in the Broncos from the start. The Broncos, the way I kind of read this situation, they hesitated because of the compensation. Last year, to get Russell Wilson, they gave up 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. This year, the Saints, in order to get Sean Payton, the Saints were asking for 2 first-round picks, this year's and next year's. The Broncos couldn't do that. That would be roster suicide. So they wound up getting the deal down to where they gave up their first-round pick this year, which is number 29 overall, plus next year's second-round pick, but they flip it. The Broncos get the Saints' third-round pick back. So basically what the Broncos have essentially given up is a first-round pick, number 29 overall, for Sean Payton. That's doable for a coach like that. And as far as the Broncos are concerned, they looked hard at Jim Harbaugh, and they had 2 discussions with him. Whether or not they had an offer for him at some point, it didn't materialize. Jim Harbaugh decided he wanted to stick with Michigan again. The second time that conversation between Kerry Penner and Greg Penner was last week in Ann Arbor. And then the Broncos also were hopeful of DeMeco Ryans. He was on their radar. It started off with Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. DeMeco Ryans, you know, it surprised him with a strong postseason push, a strong interview. He really sold the Broncos. And for a while, he was going to be their choice. But the Houston Texans nabbed him for family considerations on DeMeco. The Broncos then really increased their efforts this week on Sean Payton. It took about 4 or 5 days this week, starting, I would say about Thursday, Friday of last week on into today. They got the deal done with the Saints. They got the parameters of a contract for Sean Payton. I expect that to be somewhere between 18 and 20 million a year. We'll see how long it is. I'm guessing it'll be at least 5 years. Those are just guesses right now. They do have the contract in place, but no doubt about it, Sean Payton is the Broncos head coach. And really, guys, when you consider the Russell Wilson factor, he is the clear top choice. He's a quarterback whisperer. Look what he did for Drew Brees. And he also knows how to set a winning culture. Broncos haven't won in 6 or 7 years, so they got a real good head coach here. See how it works out.
You know, Mike, you mentioned the real good head coach, but giving up a first-round pick, another pick too, the Broncos need a good coach, but also need some really good players also. Do you think this might be worth it in the end of it?
Yeah, I think the coach and the quarterback are the 2 most important aspects of a football team if you want to win. Nathaniel Hackett, I think everyone from game 1, when he sent out Brandon McManus for that 64-yard field goal, I think everyone was saying the Broncos don't have the right head coach, and it played out that way all season. You had to fix the head coach. Now let's see if the head coach, who's an offensive guy, and he's a heck of a play caller. I mean, the Saints have led the league in scoring, I believe 6 of Sean Payton's 15 years he's been a coach of the New Orleans Saints, always in the top 10. So he'll get this offense right. Now he's got to get Russell Wilson right. Obviously, Sean Payton thinks he can do it, or he wouldn't take the job.
I got to ask you this now, because the last three coaches famously had been head coaches for the first time in the National Football League. Sean Payton comes in with full locker room credibility. What he says goes, and that will go right through the locker room. His task won't necessarily be to impress his players of his abilities or his personality. His first task might be to put together a staff. I imagine he's probably got a skeleton staff already in his back pocket.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got a staff somewhat put together, but first things first, I'm sure he's going to be working on that. I think he'll come into Broncos headquarters either tomorrow or Thursday. Press conference probably won't be till Monday of next week, I've been told. So still a lot of work. But yeah, Sean Payton, now that they've gotten this far, he's going to really start zeroing in on getting his offense. He doesn't really need an offensive coordinator. From what I understand, guys, they want Ejiro Evero to stay as defensive coordinator, providing he doesn't leave and get a head coaching opportunity. Don't think that'll happen. Houston finished it up with D'Amico Ryans. Evero has a chance with the Indianapolis Colts and Arizona Cardinals, but if he didn't get one of those jobs, the Broncos will try hard to keep Ejiro. We'll see if they can, because he was strongly attached to his best friend, Nathaniel Hackett.
Mike, the second Coach Sean Payton throws a Denver Broncos hat on, all the talk will be he is the guy. But do you think from the beginning of this process he was the Broncos' #1 pick?
Again, I think they went into this process where Harbaugh and Sean Payton were the top choices. I would answer that this way. Sean Payton was the best candidate. The Broncos knew he was the best candidate because of offense, because of Russell Wilson, because of culture. But he also had some heavy strings attached, which were expensive contract, not a huge deal for the Penner Walton group, but also that draft pick compensation. They did not want to give up a first-round pick and a second-round pick next year, although they do dilute that a little bit by getting a third-round back. They did not want to give up that much after what they gave up for Russell Wilson. So they did strongly consider Jim Harbaugh because he had no compensation. D'Amico Ryans had no compensation, but he was he would have been the fourth consecutive first-time head coach. In the end, I think this is the best candidate for the Broncos. The problem is they did have to give up more than they wanted to. But, sometimes I think it was Jerry Jones, everything that he bought that worked out, he overpaid for. And maybe the Broncos overpaid just a little bit for Sean Payton, but the hope is they got the right coach for the next 5-10 years.
Well, we'll get a chance to talk to you more about it coming up on 4 o'clock at 9 News. We'll hopefully learn a little bit more about his contract. As you said, he's going to be well compensated for a long time, and how that relationship with he and Russell Wilson will certainly be different than it was over the past year with Nathaniel Hackett. Mike, we'll see you coming up at 4 o'clock. I thought one of the other things I wanted to make note of was Broncos fans, of course, hold Mike Shanahan in reverence. Right. Sean Payton and Mike Shanahan are very similar in a variety of ways. They both went to high school outside of Chicago, about 30 miles apart from one another. They both ended up as quarterbacks at Eastern Illinois. Both were very successful head coaches in the National Football League. So if Sean Payton can bring to Denver what Mike Shanahan brought, he's about 11 years younger. Mike Shanahan now 70 years old, Sean Payton 59. It'll be very interesting to see if those parallels do in fact play all the way out.
At the very least, it's a good omen. 2 Super Bowl championships for Shanahan, another Eastern Illinois guy coming into town.
A lot of headlines once again for the Broncos as they have made Sean Payton their next head coach. Much more to come throughout the day here on 9 News, as well as on the networks of 9 News and 9news.com for all that you want to know about Sean Payton now becoming the Broncos head coach. We'll see you coming up with more on this at 4 o'clock.